Hi everyone. In today's video, we are going to discuss a very common mistake that a lot of candidates make in their system design interviews. Consistency is a word which all of us use very commonly in our system design interviews. You have a financial problem, you use consistency as a word. You have a problem which has a lot of high concurrency, you use consistency. You require transactions, you use consistency, right? Consistency is in fact so much overloaded that we in fact use it interchangeably and most of the time wrongly in our interviews. Now, if your interviewer catches you using this common word very wrongly, he can end up confusing you and you'll fail your interview miserably because this is a very basic concept and most of the people are not clear with this concept. That's why I have decided to make up this video. We are discussing what exactly is consistency, and not just that, how do you confuse consistency in different scenarios, and what does consistency means in all of those scenarios, right? So I hope after this video you would be clear with the use of consistency in different aspects of system design. So let's begin. So what I've done as part of this discussion is I have divided this entire section into four possible scenarios where we use the word consistency. I'll go over them one by one. I'll explain further. So the very first scenario where we use consistency essentially is we want to refer to something called linearization. Now, what exactly is linearization? Right? So, you are definitely aware of the cap theorem. We have consistency, we have availability, we have partition tolerance, right? So, in this domain, the word consistency that we use essentially means linearization. I'll explain what linearization is, but just remember whenever you are talking about cap theorem, the consistency you are referring here is essentially the concept called linearization. Now, let me take an example. So, let's say we have this database that has two replicas. The writes always happen on the orange replica, whereas reads can happen on any of the replica, the orange one or the black one. Now, what happens when you make a write to the orange replica? So when you make a write to the orange replica, it takes some time to replicate that write to the black replica, right? So this is called replica consistency. That is, whatever write you made at the primary one, you need to replicate it across the secondary read replicas as well. Now, due to this lag, what happens if during the time when this replication has not succeeded, or during the time when this replication is happening, if any read request comes for that write which was made at this instance, that write request was not made at this instance, so any read request for it would result into something called as inconsistent or inconsistent result, because any read on this replica will return that write and any read on this replica will not return that write. So essentially your read requests would be inconsistent, right? So this concept is essentially called linearization. So this essentially happens when your database is a distributed system. It essentially requires distributed databases to have such a problem. If you had a single replica or a single instance of your database, such a problem should never come. I have seen where interviewers asking the candidates that if you have a single instance of your database, would you need consistency as a problem here? So that's where you should remember, in the part of linearization, it's only occurring if your database is distributed. It has more than one replicas. So there is a replication lag. And during that replication lag, your read requests or other requests could be inconsistent. That is essentially the consistency problem as part of linearization. Okay. So let's move ahead. So I think the first part is clear. Whenever you are discussing about CAP theorem, you should not directly think about consistency. You should essentially think about linearization to make things clear to you. Okay. Now let's move diagonally and think of something called serialization. Now this domain which we are discussing, this is not at all called consistency. But a lot of people in their interviews, whenever they are faced with such a scenario, they say, I need a consistent database or my database needs to provide consistency as a guarantee. That's a huge problem which candidates do. But let me explain you the problem first, right? Now imagine here you have a single instance of your database and now you are getting a lot of requests serially. So let's say this first request want to book a seat. This second request also want to book the same seat. Now imagine if these two requests had come serially in an order, what would have been the outcome or the behavior of a database? Only one of the requests, the first one, should be able to book the seat. But now let's imagine and complicate things. If all of these requests for the same seat come in parallel, then if your database supports serialization as a behavior, then its outcome would be as if these requests had come serially. I'll explain it once more. So imagine you have a single database instance and all the requests come serially. Life is very easy. Now, the problem only comes when your requests are coming in parallel. And when requests are coming in parallel, your behavior should be consistent here. That's where the people use the wrong word. It's not essentially consistent. Your behavior should be serial here. When I say your behavior should be serial here, as in the outcome should be as if the requests are coming serially. Though the requests are coming parallelly, the outcome should be as if they are coming serially. That is, in our example, if all these people parallelly want to book the same seat, only one should be able to book the seat. That's the same outcome would have happened if the requests had come serially. Now, this sort of behavior is needed in a lot of business problems like the airline reservation system, seat booking system, flat sale system. In all of these problems, you have the issue where a lot of requests are coming in parallelly. You want your database to be behaving in a serial manner so that though the requests are coming parallelly, the outcome should be as if they are coming serially, right? There are a lot of solutions for it like pessimistic locking, optimistic locking, and whatnot, right? So you have various isolation levels, snapshot isolation, serializable snapshot isolations, MVCC. So uh, that's what this problem is all about. So it has nothing to do with consistency, but I've seen candidates essentially saying that, oh, they need a consistent database for this problem. So just remember, if you are having a problem where there is a very high concurrency, there are a lot of concurrent requests, that's not a consistency problem. That's a problem where a database should support serializability. And this sort of problems essentially happen a lot where like a lot of requests can come for the same resource like booking systems, be it airline reservation ticket booking systems or let's say flash sale and other things, right? So in this case you should essentially discuss about serializability with your interviewer. You should discuss that your requests need to have an isolation sort of behavior. They should behave as if they're isolated. So that is something you should discuss with the interviewer. You should not say that, okay, my database need to have a consistent behavior. So that's why this problem, the linearization problem which we discussed first, is different from the serialization problem which we discussed later. Now, the very important thing to discuss that can be asked in an interview is, would you face this serialization problem even if your database is not distributed? Yes. Even if you have a single instance of your database, you would still face the problem because you are getting parallel requests on the same instance, and both the parallel requests are trying to access the same seat. Now your single instance should behave in a serial manner, should satisfy the serializability property. So for serialization problem to occur, you do not need to have a distributed database, right? Now that can be a very good interview question if any expert interviewer asks this, or you're applying for senior level roles. Now, see the difference. For linearization problem to occur, you needed to have a distributed database. You needed to have replicas. For serialization problem to occur, you did not need to have a distributed database, but you need to have parallel requests. And here, you didn't need to have parallel requests. You need to have a distributed database. Right? So now you should know that different problems depend upon what kind of system you have, what kind of requests you have, what kind of business domain you have, right? Here you need distributed database, not essentially parallel requests for this problem to occur. Here you need, like, it can happen in a single instance database as well, let alone distributed database, but you need concurrent requests for this problem to occur. So this second part which we say is not at all related to consistency. This is a serialization problem. So please don't say that you need a consistent database here. Okay. Now let's go to the third problem where we have database transactions. The ACID, the C part in ACID properties of the DBMS. This is also called consistency. What is this consistency? Right. So this consistency essentially means business consistency, something that is right as per the business requirements. So here if someone is satisfying or something is satisfying consistency, it means that particular database is correct as per the business requirements. It has nothing to do with linearization or serialization, anything at all. Here it means if a database is consistent, it is correct as per the business requirements. I'll take an example. If you have a financial database where people are crediting money and debiting money, and all the credits and debits are stored in the same database, now as per business validations, the total sum of all the entries in the database should be zero. If the total sum of all the entries in the database is zero, the business is happy. So that's a consistent database. If the total sum of all the entries in that database is not zero, then that business validation is failing. So the database is not consistent. That's what the consistency in ACID properties mean, right? So don't confuse it with the consistency in CAP theorem. That essentially refers to linearization. Serialization is not consistency at all. And consistency in ACID properties essentially means the business notion of correctness, right? Just a side note, the isolation that we refer in ACID properties is essentially serialization, right? Because we want all our parallel requests to behave as if they're isolated. Or in other words, we want our database to behave as if these requests are coming in a serial manner. So all these things are very nice concepts. Let's not mess them up. Let's not confuse them up. Okay. And the last one is the consistent hashing. That's entirely different from all the three domains which we have discussed. So now you can imagine that the word consistency is used in a very lame manner. People just throw it like anything into any problem that we are facing. And to be honest, it's none of your fault because like it's being a very overloaded word. So I hope just segregating different problems and what all those problems essentially refer, and what are the requirements for those problems, and where do we wrongly use the word consistency, this helps you quite a bit. I would like to mention that all these details are very much mentioned in the Designing Data Intensive Applications book. It's a very good read. Please post your feedback as comments. Do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.